Hello, everyone. This is Ross Heinersee with 714 Ministries International. I'm coming to you from my studio, an RV that I live in with my wife. But I wanted to come to you today and share with you a book review I've done on the book called Wicked, written by Gregory Maguire, and it was published some years ago. This book has come to the forefront because it's been made into both a musical and a movie. The reason it became important to me, and I'm not big into reading fiction. One of my life goals is to read 1,000 books, and I've only read a little over 400 of them so far, so I do have a long ways to go to reach my bucket list of 1,000. But the reason I chose this particular book to read is because it has such a high emphasis in society as being very interesting as far as through the musical, through the movie. But also what put me into context or into an opportunity of reading this book in particular was I had heard online that this book was being rebranded, so to speak, by taking a poster cover of the movie, putting it as the front cover of the book, and then using that to get the book into children's libraries, middle school libraries, etc. And then the person that said that said the book is not fit for children to read. And I thought that's interesting because I believe the movie is PG, maybe PG-13. I really haven't looked to see. But a lot of people are watching it. A lot of people think it's great. Some people not so much. They're not into the musical type thing. But what I wanted to do is firsthand find out, is this book any good? And should it be given to children to read? Because as far as I'm seeing and hearing, the movie and the musical are good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. It's a 495-page book, and my wife got it for me. And when it came, I thought I'm going to start reading it. Now, this was a little over a week ago. I received it on a Friday. I started reading it last Saturday, and I finished it this Wednesday. So it only took me 4 days to read, or 5 days to read the entire book. Very, very good. So what I want to do at this point, I want to share with you the positive elements because how can it be 100% negative? I mean, I guess something can, but surely there's some positive things. And then I'm going to show you some of the negative things I did find in this book. And at the end, I'll give you my conclusion on why or why not this book should be in children's libraries. And what I want you to do is, if you watch this video and you find this information useful and helpful, and you're taking it that I'm being honest with you, which I am 100%, I'm actually going to give you page numbers of where I found certain things and certain dark elements, let's call them that. And so I've actually documented what I found in this book, good, bad, or ugly. And what I want you to do is, if you do find this useful at the end, a couple things, if you would. Number one, subscribe to my channel. That would be a great help to me. I'm going to put out videos throughout the year that I believe will be helpful for you as a person, whether it's in any stage or age of life. But also, I want you to share it with others, maybe educators, parents, concerned parents, etc., pastors, people that would like to know this information and have this firsthand as well. So let's look at this book together. It's 495 pages. I have some information to share. I'm going to start with the positive. I'm going to move into the negative, and then I'm going to give you my opinion at the end. Okay? So I've got, what is it here? I've got 6 positive elements that I want to share with you that I read as I read this book. Number one, it does make for an excellent prequel to the movie The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Now, I grew up, that was a big deal growing up, was to see the movie because I believe it went from black and white to color, and that was a huge deal. I'm old, okay? But it does make an excellent prequel because from what I remember of the movie The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, everything I read in this book really matches up very well as a backstory to what Frank Baum wrote. By the way, his name is Lyman Frank Baum, and that's pretty interesting. In a moment, I'll tell you why. Now, disclaimer, I've never read the book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and maybe it was sanitized to offer to families and children too. I don't know, but we'll see. Number two, Maguire is a superbly gifted writer and wordsmith. The book was intriguing, challenging, and compelling. His talent really is a league of its own. He's a gifted intellect. He's a very smart, dare I say, brilliant writer. Number three, both directly and indirectly, he addresses many key issues and talking points of our day. And I use that as a positive element because I think it's cool that he is able to take a fiction book, a prequel to another book written by someone completely not him, another author, and then to integrate social struggles of our day, social hot points, talking points of our day. Here's the one: good, bad, or ugly. Like I said, but he integrates them into the book. It's very interesting how he does it, and he does it very well. He talks about abortion, sexuality, transgenderism, segregation, politics, religion, and feminism. And those are the ones I'm just listing. There's other topics he hits on as well. So he deals with all these topics in his own way. And I'm not saying I agree with how he sees these things, but I think it's interesting, and I give that as a positive point that he was able to integrate this in such a profound way. Now, I'm not agreeing with what he says, but he does weave these into the narrative, and he doesn't push them. Can I say it that way? It's very practical and very sensical the way he introduces these concepts at different times throughout the book. Mostly towards, if you divide the book in half, mostly towards the front part of the book. Okay? Fourth positive element. And I don't think this is a, like, oh no, I wish I didn't know that, it's going to ruin it for me. This doesn't do that. But I love how he, Gregory Maguire, pays homage to Frank Baum. So Frank Baum's initials, because his name is Lyman Frank Baum, is LFB. The main character of the book is named Elphaba. LFB, Elphaba, which is an acronym for Lyman Frank Baum. It's pretty cool. And as a person that's published a book myself, I published one. By God's grace, I'll publish more in the future. But I appreciated how he integrated and paid homage to Lyman Frank Baum by naming the main character Elphaba, LFB. So that was cool. The fifth positive element is this: in subtle but meaningful ways, he touches on the seriousness and profound subjects like eternity, friendship, humanity, the soul, and evil. He also references the scriptures, that literally references the Bible, not directly but indirectly, twice on pages 194 and 227. And then there was one more thing he talked about, and it's called the Village of Three Dead Trees. And I've wondered, because he mentions the Village of the Three Dead Trees, and then he mentions the Tavern of the Three Dead Trees. And I was wondering as I read that, is he referring to the cross? Because as you know, there were three crosses, and Jesus was the man in the middle. And I'll let you decide on if he's referring to the cross or not. But it was called the Village of the Three Dead Trees, and I just thought that was interesting. Why wasn't it 4? Why wasn't it 2? Why were they dead? Why were they not alive? There's a lot there. So just very interesting. The sixth positive element was the main, in the first part of the book, in the first chapter of the book, and it's a very long chapter. Like I said, the book is 495 pages. There's a husband named Frex. He's a minister. He's a minister to the unnamed God, which is also a very interesting concept. Like I said, he includes religious concepts in this book in a very hidden way, but open as well. You just got to read the book to see that. But Frex is married to Milana, Melana, and they are the ones together, supposedly, and you can read this, no spoiler alerts here, but supposedly, maybe not, they give birth to Elphaba, okay, because it's their daughter. But she calls her husband, who is a minister, she calls him a fraud and a charlatan. Now that was interesting. And with what she said, based upon how he lives out his life experience, I would have to agree with her based upon the truth of 1 Timothy 5:8 that says this: if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Because the story, how his story plays out, reminds me of a story of a family that I'm very near and dear to, where the husband was a minister, and he would go off and leave his family for long periods of time and neglect them in gross and horrible ways. And I know this to be true because I know the family and the story, and it really resonated that he was that kind of a minister, that he put his ministry ahead of his family. And anybody that's worth their salt in the ministry will tell you that their first and most important ministry is their family, not neglect thereof. So when she called him a fraud and a charlatan, I agreed with that based upon 1 Timothy 5:8. Still a positive element though, because she called out what was true, right? Now let's move to what I call the negative elements of this book. 495 pages, but here are some negative elements, and I'm going to give you the page listings so you can know. I'm not just saying, oh, I saw this in the book and it was horrible. I'm going to give you the pages that I found this information on, and you can fact check me. And of course, feel free in the comments to leave comments, questions, suggestions, ideas, or understandings about anything I share, including the Village of the Three Dead Trees, what your opinion is on that, okay? First negative element is abortion is seen in a positive light in this book. You will find between pages 7 to 9 that Milana, Elphaba's mother, says, number one, she says, I am only a host for the parasite. That is very pro-choice language. It is not pro-life language. You do not call the fetus or the embryo or whatever it is that God has allowed to begin to come to life inside of your womb as a woman, as a mother. It's not a parasite, but that's very, parasitic is very pro-choice and anti-pro-life language. So I thought that was very interesting. And then she also says, I feel like a hostage to the baby. And this is before it's born. So this preborn, unborn baby, she's calling it a parasite. She says, I feel like I'm a hostage to it. That was negative to me, because abortion, in light of let's kill the baby, right? It goes further with that, though. On pages 23 and 34, as a second negative element, pages 23 and 34, infanticide is looked at in a positive light as well concerning Elphaba. Maybe we should drown her, we should kill her, we should do this to her. On pages 23 and 34, it goes from abortion before she's born to after she's born, we should still kill it. Both of those are negatives for me. This is not something children should be introduced to. This is not part of life that they should have to struggle with at a very young age. They'll deal with these concepts later in life. We all do. We all grow up and mature and are able to take these situations into hand and handle them with wisdom, with understanding, with maturity. But for children to be reading these concepts it really wasn't, it's not what I would agree with, okay? Third negative element, page 15, Gregory Maguire talks about a threesome between a married man, a woman, a widow woman, and her daughter. And the widow brings the daughter to the married man and they have a threesome. And he talks about it in his book, page 15. Totally immoral. Something no child should be reading in a book. The fourth negative element, and this is found on a lot of pages. So I'm going to tell you what pages these are found on. At some point, if you're interested, you can ask me in the information. I can put them down in the information below. But this information that I'm getting ready to share with you is found on pages 39, 40, 43, 54 through 55, page 57, 61, 97, 196, 203 to 205, page 233, page 239, page 250, page 259, page 280, and page 450. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 different pages talk about one or more of this list of sinful things that no child should be put in front of them. And I didn't play this up to be negative about the book. I wanted to know the truth, and by the way, I now know the truth. On these pages, what did I say, 18? There's verbal nudity. I mean, talking graphically about people's bodies and body parts. Soft porn, adultery. There's an orgy. There's bestiality, and there's BDSM on those 18 pages. So between those 18 pages, you've got all these things going on: nudity, pornography, adultery, an orgy, bestiality, and BDSM on 18 pages of this book. Now, it's a 495-page book. 10% of the book would be 49 pages. So it's roughly about 3% of the book deals with these topics, but they're in there, and it's not fit for children. The fifth negative element is cursing. The F word is used, I think, 2 or 3 times. The word hell is used, and S-H-I-T is used. And it's mainly one character, but it still is in the book, and I don't agree with that. I have watched plenty of incredible movies. No cursing, no nudity, no sex. You don't need these things to entertain people, number one. But number two, children don't need to see these things. You say, oh, but society, they hear it anyway. They don't need to hear it anyway. That's the point. Let's start taking this culture back. Let's start making things the way they should be instead of just patting it on the head and say, well, that's just the way it is. Change has to start somewhere. But the cursing is found on pages 112, 113, 116, and 175. Here's a sixth negative element for me. You get to the point in the book and there's magic involved. I am not anti-magic in the bigger like, oh, magic, but to a degree, right? But I will say, it's very interesting that they begin to blur this line on page 167 to say some magic is bad, it's called black magic, and some magic is good, it's called white magic. Now, I'm going to say I don't agree with any of that. When I was saying I don't think magic is bad, it's contextual, how it's used and what is done and what is performed and these kind of things, because that can be a blurry line, at least for me. Maybe it's not for you. And in the comments below, you can say, well, Ross, here's why it's not a blurry line and here's why. But here's why I had an issue with it. Because I do believe to a degree, all magic is wrong and bad. And so when you sanitize it by saying, well, if it's magic used in a bad way, it's black, in a good way, it's white. But then you've got to say, do I agree that the way it's used as white magic is really a good way? Because it can still be self-serving and wrong. So I'll leave that at that for now because I want to think through that more. But I will say it's a negative element to try to sanitize magic and say it's okay by calling it white versus black. I don't agree with that. Page 201 is my seventh negative element, page 201. And they basically mock salvation, which I'm a born-again Christian. Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sin, for your sin, the sin of the world. He was buried and rose again. He is the Son of God. He is the long sought after Messiah of the Jewish people. By the way, I'm also Jewish. So I have accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. He's my Messiah and my Savior. Okay? Any mockery of salvation just doesn't work for me. That's why I'm going to say that's a no, right? Page 201, they mock salvation. Finally, negative element number 8, and we're done, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Pages 443 and 444, there's a brutal murder that takes place. And when I say brutal, it's not super graphic, but it's graphic enough that I'm like, not for kids, right? And I'm going to explain in just a moment why it's not for kids. But on those pages, one character takes, I believe it's a trophy or something, and bashes the head in of another person in the character of the book. I mean, just murder, right? Just boom, done. And so I just can't agree with that for children. I don't think children should be reading that. You can say someone passed away versus saying they take something and bash somebody's head in. Just not good. So those are the 8 negative elements that I found within the book. The biggest one, as you know, was the fourth one I shared, the nudity, pornography, adultery, orgy, bestiality, and BDSM. And that was 18 pages worth. So it wasn't just in one or two places. A lot of it was at the beginning, and then in the middle to closer to the end, there was more again, including an adulterous affair that there's no guilt. There's no real... There is guilt later on, I guess I should say, so that's cool. I mean, that's a positive element, in my opinion. When you feel guilty for doing wrong, that's good, that you feel bad. But in the bigger picture, this is not for children. I mean, they shouldn't be reading this stuff, and it's graphic. It's graphic. I'm not playing that up. I don't need to. I don't need attention, right? But I am as Ezekiel on the book of Ezekiel, the watchman on the wall, just warning people. Look what I've seen. Beware, danger. Okay? But why would I say that children shouldn't read this? Well, let me give you the criteria of an R-rated movie. So an R-rated movie, when it's rated R, it means no one under 17 is admitted without an accompanying parent or an adult guardian. The film contains adult material such as strong language, violence, intense graphic violence, drug abuse, and nudity. Now, what I think is interesting is it doesn't leave anything in there about sex, and that should also be part of the R rating. If they're having a sexual relationship, that should be why it should be rated R. As the Bible teaches us, sex is for marriage. It's not for us to just do whenever we want, wherever we want, with whoever we want. It's a sacred gift that God has given to a husband and wife in the context of a marriage. And then the other part of an R rating, what defines an R rating, is parents should investigate the content of the movie, in this case book, more thoroughly before taking their children to see it. So society has put a standard on movies that say if it contains these things, language, violence, graphic violence, drug abuse, nudity, kids can't just go buy a ticket, and they can't just go in on their own. They have to have a guardian or a parent accompany them to the movie if they're under 17. This is why I don't think the book is even fit for high school, because most high schoolers are between the age of 17 and 18 when they graduate, some 16. So they're too young to go to the movie to see this. They shouldn't be allowed to be given a book for their mind to absorb it and play it out in their head as their own little personal movie theater that we all know takes place within the imaginations and the conscience and of our minds, right? And so for that reason, I don't think this book is fit for any child under the age of 18 to read. Like I said, that's my take on the book. I hope you appreciate my openness, my honesty. I had no axe to grind with Wicked whatsoever. When it first came out, I thought, Wicked, man, that's just not, as a Christian, I'm like, you just don't call a movie Wicked. I mean, that's just not the title, but I didn't go any further than I'm just like, yeah, whatever. That's the world. Then when I saw that, where on social media somewhere, that someone said, yeah, it's not fit for children, I thought, I want to know for sure, is it fit for children? And in my estimation, it's not fit for children. So there you go. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed reading the book as an adult. Very interesting. He wrote 3 other books, Son of a Witch, and 2 others. That one stuck with me because it sounded like a play on words to me. I'm not going to read them. I've got, you only have enough time in the world to read certain things, so I won't read those books per se. That I maybe down the road sometime if I just have extra time, but I doubt I will. I found enough out about what he's writing here. I really don't want to support him more by buying more of his stuff. So if you decide to check this book out, I encourage you to check it out of a library, not a school library hopefully, but maybe a public library. But realize we're all accountable for what we know, what we see, what we experience. If you see something, say something. That's what I've done. And if this has been a help or blessing to you in any way, and if you know this information should be passed on to other people, feel free to send it to your pastor, your youth minister, your children's minister, or just your local parent or whoever, to help curb the sinful, evil influence on our children and the culture that needs Jesus. Okay, well, thank you for your time. God bless. Have a great day.